Coming Up for Air emerges as an interwar novel, crafted by British author George Orwell, shortly preceding the onset of World War II. Initially published in 1939, Orwell penned this work during his recovery in Morocco from injuries sustained in the Spanish Civil War. Set within the late 1930s, the narrative orbits around George Bowling, a middle-aged insurance salesman, grappling with apprehensions about the impending conflict. Paralleling Orwell's more renowned creations, Animal Farm, 1945, and 1984, 1949, Coming Up for Air delves into themes of trauma, surveillance, totalitarianism, and nostalgia. While it may not attain the same level of popularity as Orwell's other works, Coming Up for Air nevertheless presents pertinent critiques concerning capitalism and the looming specter of war, resonating with contemporary readers. The novel is divided into 4 sections, alternating between the present and the past. Commencing on a wintry January day, the story follows George Bowling on his quest for a new set of dentures. At 45 years old, Bowling is an insurance salesman residing in the uninspiring outskirts of London. Despite his mundane life, Bowling harbors an electrifying secret: he recently secured £17 by betting on horses. Rather than allocating the funds toward his family, he opts to splurge on himself. The initial part chronicles his journey to London and his escapades there, interwoven with a seemingly eclectic assortment of incidents and introspections on Bowling's part. Departing his abode, he muses over others' perceptions of him and ruminates on the notion of homeownership, which he regards as a scam. Upon entering a general store, he witnesses a worker subjected to her boss's reprimand. While aboard the train en route to London, a passing warplane catches Bowling's gaze. As another passenger labels him Tubby, Bowling becomes fixated on his own physique. Gazing at the suburban landscape of London slipping past, he foresees the city's precarious tranquility being short-lived. In London, Bowling takes care of some paperwork at his office, before proceeding to his dentist's appointment. Arriving ahead of schedule, he enters a modern diner. The diner's sleek appearance unsettles Bowling, and the food he orders evokes repulsion. Wandering through the streets of London, his thoughts drift to the potential consequences of the impending war on the populace and the urban landscape. His musings then turn to reminiscences of his devout experiences at the church during his childhood in the small town of Lower Binfield. The second segment of the novel delves into Bowling's recollections, encapsulating the chapters of his life up until this juncture. Bowling's parents embodied traditional familial roles, with his father inheriting an animal feed shop. He characterizes his father as an honest, industrious individual. Central to Bowling's memories are the days spent alongside his elder brother, Joe, and Joe's group of comrades, collectively known as the Black Hand. Fishing occupies a prominent place in these reflections, from his earliest angling expedition with the gang to his frequent truancies from school in pursuit of fish. He recalls a hidden pool teeming with colossal, aged fish, which he kept concealed. However, he hasn't indulged in fishing since turning 16. An opportunity presented itself during World War I when he and another soldier devised a rudimentary fishing setup near a pond, yet they were deployed before they could cast their lines. In the aftermath of the war, Bowling's life has been marked by a lack of leisure for fishing. He once proposed the idea to his wife, Hilda, but she dismissed it as a costly endeavor. Alongside fishing, reading holds a special place in Bowling's heart, a passion that commenced during his boyhood and has persisted into adulthood. Independent reading became his habit, with him devouring several novels each week. As he neared his 16th birthday, his father withdrew him from school due to the encroachment of a new retail chain on the family shop, necessitating Bowling's assistance in generating supplementary income. Bowling's period of employment with a local grocer named Grimmett marked the happiest phase of his life, notwithstanding the declining state of his father's business and his brother's departure. During this period, he courted a young woman named Elsie Wells and promptly enlisted in the army merely 2 months following England's declaration of war against Germany. In 1916, while navigating no man's land, a shell detonated near Bowling, leaving fragments lodged in his back and legs. Subsequently, he underwent recuperation in a hospital situated along the southeastern coast of England, where he received a commission as an officer. He recollects the circumstances surrounding his parents' passing. His father met his demise during the war while Bowling was stationed overseas, and his mother was abruptly claimed by stomach cancer. Throughout the war, Bowling held command over a minuscule army base primarily tasked with storing rations. Despite the insignificance of his role amid the backdrop of soldiers' sacrifices, he found solace in his safety. During idle hours, he immersed himself in books left behind by prior officers at the base. Post-war, Bowling grappled with securing employment, eventually stumbling upon a role as a traveling insurance salesman due to a serendipitous reunion with one of his former superiors. Bowling recounts the circumstances that led to his marriage with Hilda. Approaching 30 and enjoying a measure of success, he wed Hilda, who was 24 at the time and, in his view, exhibited a degree of childishness. The rationale behind his decision to marry her remains unclear to Bowling, though he speculates that their differing social classes might have influenced his attraction. In the initial years of their marriage, Bowling harbored fantasies of harming Hilda, although such desires gradually waned over time. Part 3 of the novel commences as Bowling concludes the same day that commenced in Part 1, still grappling with how to expend his £17. He accompanies Hilda to a left book club gathering, where a speaker discusses the ascent of fascism. Bowling surmises that Hilda and her companions fail to grasp the speaker's discourse, although he himself loses interest in the lecture soon after its commencement. Disenchanted by the meeting, Bowling pays a visit to Porteous, a retired schoolteacher. Bowling struggles to comprehend every aspect of Porteous's discourse, yet he relishes the scholastic atmosphere that envelopes the elderly educator. A couple of months later, Bowling finds himself behind the wheel when he comes upon a field adorned with the exquisite blooms of primroses. Their beauty is so captivating that he halts to gather a bouquet, a simple act that brings him joy. Pondering the impact of past and impending wars on humanity's capacity to appreciate nature, Bowling suspects that heightened anxiety has eroded this innate connection. However, his tranquil interlude is interrupted by the approach of another car, inducing a self-conscious retreat, leaving his flowers behind. Driven by the urge to revisit his hometown of Lower Binfield, Bowling conjures images of returning to the carp pond at Benfield House. 3 months subsequently, he embarks on the journey, deceitfully concealing his intent from both his employer and his wife, even contemplating canceling the venture and confessing his subterfuge. Along the way, Bowling's growing paranoia makes him feel as if he's being pursued. The 4th section of the novel unfolds as Bowling draws closer to Lower Binfield. Upon arriving at the outskirts of the town, he is met with a jarring revelation: the once familiar locale has transformed into an industrial city. Navigating through unfamiliar streets, Bowling quickly becomes disoriented. Eventually retracing his steps to the old town center, he checks into the George, which formerly served as a pub and now stands as an upscale hotel. At the George, he encounters an attractive blonde woman and entertains thoughts of a dalliance. As he roams the town, he encounters his former residence now converted into a tea shop, where he tries to glimpse the house as it once was. However, guilt tinges his emotions, compelling him to swiftly exit. Visiting his parents' graves, Bowling finds himself devoid of sentiment. The church's appearance aligns with his recollections, yet when the vicar from his youth approaches, he fails to recognize Bowling. Returning to the George, Bowling endeavors to flirt with the blonde woman, only to be met with her disinterest. Seeking solace in the hotel's bar, he engages with locals about the town's metamorphosis. It is here that he learns of Benfield House's transformation into a facility for mental health care. The following morning, Bowling awakens with a hangover. His surprise is palpable as he observes schoolchildren marching in a disciplined formation, clutching signs that read "Britons prepare." He dedicates 2 days to meandering through the town, painting mental pictures of its bygone days. On a Sunday, Bowling ventures out to fish, only to be taken aback by the sight of riverbanks teeming with young individuals. Before departing, he indulges in an arcade game that estimates one's weight, revealing an increase in his girth, an outcome he attributes to his indulgence in drink. Later that same day, his attention is captivated by a woman who triggers a sense of recognition. Following her for a stretch, he eventually identifies her as Elsie Wells, his initial serious girlfriend. The transformation that has befallen Elsie astonishes Bowling. Craftily feigning interest in purchasing a pipe, Bowling converses with Elsie at a shabby tobacco shop. However, she fails to recognize him. A brief interaction with Elsie's husband leaves Bowling without a pipe, departing from the shop. Subsequently, Bowling's evening unfolds in a pub where he imbibes excessively with a fellow traveling salesman. The morning thereafter greets Bowling with a heightened sense of misery. Driven by an unswerving determination, he embarks on a visit to the pool at Binfield House. Reflections on the transformations endured by Lower Benfield and the pool's potential state occupy his thoughts. Approaching Benfield House, the sight of a stand of beech trees from his past brings a wave of relief. Reaching the pond where he once fished with his brother Joe and their gang, he is confronted with its current incarnation, a popular swimming locale within a new housing development. A conversation with a resident unveils the disheartening truth that his clandestine childhood oasis has been drained and transformed into a landfill. Returning to the George, a sudden emergency radio broadcast intimates the severity of his wife's condition. Bowling, suspecting it to be a ploy by Hilda, chooses to disregard it. The subsequent day, as Bowling navigates the town on foot, the reverberating hum of bombers overhead assails his ears. The shrill whistling of a plummeting bomb propels Bowling to throw himself onto the ground, seeking refuge. A sudden explosion rends the air, hurling bricks and debris in all directions. Bowling, on edge, awaits the ominous descent of a second bomb. Eventually, he gathers the courage to rise and witnesses a swarm of children, clad in gas masks, scurrying down the street. It comes to light that the explosion resulted from a bomb released by a Royal Air Force plane during a training exercise. With Lower Benfield's altered landscape etched in his mind, Bowling departs, resolute in the understanding that the town of his youth has been irrevocably transformed. As he traverses the road past London, Bowling's mind becomes a theater of impending conflict, visualizing the approaching war. Doubts concerning Hilda's illness creep into Bowling's thoughts, mingled with a gnawing guilt over the 5 days spent in Lower Benfield. Upon his return, he is greeted by the reassuring sight of Hilda, in good health. Nonetheless, the relief is fleeting, supplanted by the realization that Hilda has detected his deception, unraveling the web of lies he spun about his whereabouts in Birmingham. Hilda's certainty that he has been in the company of another woman becomes steadfast, despite his vehement protests. Engulfed by a skirmish with Hilda, Bowling's war-related anxieties subside as he plunges into the turmoil of their conflict. As the novel concludes, Bowling stands at a crossroads, deliberating whether to disclose the truth to his wife. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.